Today I'm going to be introducing our exciting new app, TripCast, podcasts to match your miles. My name is Edward Crowther and I would like to introduce Chris Edwards and Mohammed Chowdhury, who will be taking you through all the fantastic features of the app. If you ever find yourself on your morning commute, really engaged and focused on your podcast, only to arrive at your destination and find that there is still 10 minutes to go. Perhaps you're not sure what to listen to and maybe just want some suggestions. Or maybe you've been driving somewhere and your podcast finishes long before your journey ends, leaving you in silence, relying on Siri to keep you listening. TripCast allows you to enter your required journey or even select from a favourite journey and then select a genre that you want to listen to. The app will then return 5 podcasts that match that journey time and the genre that you have selected. I would like to hand over to Chris, who will be talking about and demonstrating the front-end code used to power TripCast.
Okay, welcome to TripCast. This is the onboarding page, and it's the page you'll be greeted by the first time you come to our app, and it will just guide you through the sign-up process and give you a little bit of background information about the app. We're going to go ahead and make an account. I'm just going to make a really long account because I've made so many accounts and I don't want to have an error. We're going to go ahead, quickly create that account, and now we're into our journey page. This is where you can enter your journey, destination, and pick your journey. We're going to go ahead and save a favourite for now, and then I'm going to talk about the code a little bit and how it's working, and then we're going to make our journey. So I've saved a postcode here. So this is from my house to the nearest Greggs. I'm going to save that journey now because I plan to make this journey a lot. Okay, brilliant. So we've saved that now. I'm just going to delete this, and you can see that saved there. So later on, once I've bored you with a bit of code, we're going to go make that journey. So this is one of the core functionalities of our app, and it's fetching the podcast from our backend server. We're using Axios library here, which is handling all our HTTP requests. Notice we're using async await syntax here for handling these asynchronous operations. We're sending a post request to our server, and we pass in the start point, destination point, and the selected genre. Once this request is successful, we console log results, and we also navigate the user to the podcast result page, and we also send them with the 5 podcasts, which you'll see. If it goes wrong, we console log the error so we can debug. And finally we reset the loading state so we can go again. Okay, cool. Let's make our journey. So we saved it as a favourite. I'm in the mood for a bit of comedy, so let's go. So you just click cast. It will take a few seconds to find the podcasts, and it will give us 5 comedy podcasts, and the journey will be probably 2 or 3 minutes either side from your actual journey time, just to account for things such as traffic or if you have to pause it for whatever reason. Let's have a click on this one, talking about football. So you click them and it opens up a little description. It gives you the journey time or the length of a podcast, and then once you've chosen, you can click play. Once you get to the podcast page, you're greeted by this audio component. I'm just going to decide to play our
least a diesel vehicle between the time
podcast.
Chelsea won their 3rd Prem title
And it will start playing.
won their only one. That's 2009 and 2020.
You can
Then
jump ahead.
We haven't got mismatches.
It does take a few seconds to load.
At the moment.
But you can jump ahead, jump back, play or pause. You can also head back to the home page and start a new journey, and it will remember where you are on the podcast, so you can just start off from where you left off, or you can start a new journey. Next up, we have integration with Firebase Firestore. Firestore is a powerful NoSQL database from Google, and this function here, fetch favorite journeys, is tasked with pulling the user's favorite journeys from the database. We get a reference to the user's documents, and we retrieve the document using the async await syntax. If the document exists, we update our component state with the saved journeys. If not, we log a message to the console to help us debug. Here you can See, we're using React's useState and useEffect hooks to manage our component state and perform side effects. useState allows us to add state to our function components. useEffect lets us perform side effects. In this case, it's used to call the fetch favorite journeys function whenever the user ID prop changes, ensuring that each user will get their personalized favorite journeys. Lastly, we're going to take a look at the custom audio player. Built using native audio web API and React hooks, the useState hook helps keep track of the audio object, its play state, its duration, and the current time. Whereas further down, the useEffect hook is used to add event listeners to the audio object for various events, such as loaded metadata, ended, and time update. We're also using local storage to remember the current time of the audio player between sessions. That improves the user's experience. When the component unmounts, we ensure to remove these event listeners and pause the audio, keeping everything clean and tidy. I'm going to hand over to Mo, who's going to talk about how our backend works.
Thanks, Chris. So some of the tech that we used involved Node, Express, Axios, and Firebase. We used Axios to make the calls between the front end and the back end, and to make the calls to the APIs. The reason we used the back end, we felt it would be more safe because some of the APIs required the API tokens to be in the URL request itself. So we stored the API keys as variables in the .m file just so that it was a little bit more secure. So as you can see, we make 3 requests to the OpenRoutes API service. The first one is the start location, which gets converted to a coordinate, an end location, which gets converted to another coordinate, and then these 2 coordinates are passed into the third request, which then provides us with a journey time. Once we have the journey time, we do a little bit of math because the value is passed back to us in seconds. However, the Listen Notes API takes the time of the audio that we require in minutes. So the math converts that value, and then we add in a parameter of around 3 minutes so that we have a range of podcasts, as it would be difficult to have a podcast specifically for that duration of the journey. The requests were made using Axios. It allows us to make these calls concurrently, and then we are able to improve the user experience so the user is not waiting very long, and we can return the promise and pass on the data to the front end. Just to quickly show you how the API works, we have a parameter of a postcode. So for example, Doncaster Rovers Stadium, we have the end parameter, which is a postcode for Old Trafford in Manchester, and these 2 calls return us coordinates. We then pass these 2 coordinates as parameters into the OpenRoute service directions, and that will give us a journey time. If I run this, it returns a response, and then I can take the coordinates. I then run this second request. I can take these coordinates just here, and then I can pass these 2 coordinates as parameters into the third call, and if I request that, it returns this response, and the response provides us with a distance and a duration. Once we have all this information, we can then pass into our Listen Notes API. So for example, in this instance, our journey time was over 5,000 seconds, and converted to minutes is between 80 and 90 minutes. So I've set the podcast that I would like between 80 and 95 minutes. We've specified a type of episode, so we just want episodes and then a search string of Star Wars. So if we pass that information to the API, it will respond with a response object which provides us with specific things about the podcast itself, an image, a thumbnail, the genre that it is linked to, and then also the link, so we can then use that MP3 to then play in the web app. The first week we thrashed out a plan and whittled down all our ideas to get an MVP. So for this we used Trello. So this was just to list the app ideas and then to get a gist of the tasks that we were looking to do. We used Figma to design the actual app, visualizing the pages and the themes of the app, the design, and then also to work out a user journey workflow so that we were able to see what the user would interact with. We used Slack to communicate with the tutors and the support group. We used Google Meet for video calls, and then we used WhatsApp to communicate between ourselves. Collaboration, we used VS Code, GitHub. VS Code, we used LiveShare for mob and paired programming. A lot of the problems that we had were solved using mob and paired programming. We also had group debugging sessions with some of the tutors that helped. We created 2 repositories for the front end and 1 for the back end so that we were able to keep them separate and then make changes to one or the other without affecting the other.
Okay, so some of the challenges that we were presented with reared their heads quite early on. And one of those was the API selection. Initially, we wanted to use Google's API using Google Maps and Google Maps directions. Initially, the intention was that the start of the journey that we'll be using for the podcast could actually just be at a current location instead of having to put in your current postcode. So we went to Google Maps and Google Maps directions, and whilst it was relatively straightforward to follow and it looked like it was something we would be able to implement, unfortunately it's not free. It made us look around, and when we did, we found Open Route Service, which is totally free to use and is very much aimed at smaller projects just like ours. It's very well documented, and it was quite easy to understand what was required of the post and get request. All 3 of us just making calls and actually understood what we needed to send and what we would receive. In terms of where we're going to get the podcast from and how we were going to play them, our initial instinct was to go with Spotify. It's something we all know, and it seems to be extremely feature rich. Whilst it appeared to be free, the documentation wasn't great. We weren't really able to understand what it was that was actually required of us. So again, we then looked elsewhere and found Listen Notes. It's very easy to understand. Their documentation is superb, and we were very quickly able to understand what was actually required to actually make that API work how we needed it to. We also had some issues with the React swipeable views. This was used in the onboarding pages, but for some reason, we were all having issues actually getting that to load, and it was causing a lot of grief, and it didn't seem particularly straightforward as to how that was actually fixable. If it's not fixable, we potentially look at producing that swipe ourselves, or perhaps seeing if there is another sort of service that we could use instead.
We also came across some issues when building the music player. So the music player uses a lot of state. It's got to remember a lot of things, and it's constantly updating local storage. One of the issues we had with it is every millisecond of the podcast, what goes, it was automatically updating the local storage. So that's a lot of information to be storing in local storage that often. So we stripped it back. So now it only updates the local storage on play, pause, or when the user changes the time. We also came across some issues with Firestore backend. The databases caused us some issues. We kept getting mismatch errors where there's an odd numbers of documents, so it wouldn't pull out our data. We actually had to unpick that with the tutors in the end. Now the Firestore is working as it should, and it pulls the user's favorite journeys back. We had some bugs in our code. I think because we built the product so fast, we did get most of them fixed, but it's still not the cleanest UI, and it's not the end product.
So I guess that wraps up our presentation today of TripCast. I hope you've all really enjoyed listening to us showcase everything that we've done over the last month. I think we can probably all agree that we're really excited to take this a bit further going forward from today. So thank you again. I've been Ed Crowther. We've had Chris with us, and we've had Mo with us as well. You've got our GitHub and LinkedIn handles at the bottom there. And thank you again.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.